The Hush No More podcast, where the conversation about trauma, faith, hope, and mental wellness within sports collide. With your host, Leslie Johnson. The Hush No More podcast proudly presents an evening with Dr. J, benefiting the Anthony Adams House.
We're live here at Blue Chip Hotel, Casino, and Spa in Michigan City, Indiana. Welcome. 15. We are here to honor Anthony Adams House, and we have a special guest tonight, Dr. J, the one and only.
Dr. J is in the building. Are you going to meet Dr. J?
I already met him. Oh my God, it was
the first time meeting?
It was fantastic. I was in awe. He's quite a guy.
He's a great guy. He's a total professional.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Stephen Bardo. Work with Big Ten Network and Fox Sports. Former NBA player, and also call some Chicago Sky WNBA games as well as some.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Very nice.
yeah. I remember you playing.
Yes, sir. Well, you know Dr. J.
Who doesn't know Dr. J? I had a
Did
post.
you ever know him personally?
Yeah, I've met him a few times, but not while he was playing. And I had a poster of Dr. J in my room.
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I mean,
Because, this era is all about LeBron James.
Yeah.
And then my era was all about Michael Jordan.
That's right.
So let's talk about that era that, hey, it was all about the Doc.
Well, Doc was class personified, right? And so, my parents were very strict in terms of us and our presentation and how the world's going to, look at you. And Dr. J was an amazing example of a graceful guy on the court, sharp dresser off the court, very eloquent in the way that he spoke, total professional. And so I emulated him growing up. So, whenever I see him, I know him, but I still, you know how it is when you see somebody that you idolize. There's still a little moment there where I get kind of like, oh man, that's Doc. Yeah.
Yes. And Dana Black has her own broadcast for the Democrats. She works for the Democratic Party.
Okay.
If you could have seen her face when she met Dr. J earlier, and it was so interesting because I've met him a few times. But when you see someone meet him for the first time, it was like she was 5 years old.
Yes.
The way that she was just so shell-shocked to see the great Julius Erving.
Yeah, now think about that. So Dr. J, I tell young people when I go to talk, Dr. J was MJ, LeBron, and God rest his soul, Kobe, all rolled into one. That's how big he was for us because there was no social media. There was no internet. So we had to wait on the games being played, the interviews when ESPN was still young. And every time I saw him, he was class act. Yeah.
And a lot of people, I've always heard that Michael Jordan really brought attention to all the shoes and all the licensing. But I was totally surprised when I failed to realize that it was Dr. J who actually had the first signature shoe. Converse.
First signature Converse shoe. I had a pair. Shoot, yeah. Look. No, not like him. I tried, but I had a little bit, but not like him. Yeah, but no, I loved his shoes. I had his jersey, and he was a trailblazer in a number of different ways.
Anthony Adams House is a shelter for homeless and runaway youth. As you all know, I've shared this story so many times. Between the ages of 15 and 17, I was a runaway youth. I went through that phase. And Anthony Adams is my father, who passed away June 4th, 2015 of a heart attack. His family is here. And when I went through that stage, it was just the love that my father, he was always in my life. So I don't want to say it like he just came into my life at that stage. But it was just the relationship and the love that he showed me. Now, not that he ever condoned me disrespecting my mother. I always have to put that out there. It was nothing like that, but just the energy and just the spirit. And so I founded this organization. You know, when I went through that, that was in the 80s. And there were no programs like this in place. And I just often wondered if there was something like this in place back then, maybe I wouldn't have went through everything that I went through. You know, mine was more of just conflict, you know, no abuse, no neglect. My mother did a fantastic job, but it was just conflict. And so I felt like in this day with so many troubled youth going through so much, you know, why not found this organization? And when my father passed away, you know, prior to him passing away, about a year before that, he said to me, you know, we were just talking about, you know, death and having his things in order. And he said, I have a gift for you. I love you. You know, don't pay bills with it. But don't miss me too much either when I'm gone. And I'm like, how you ask me something like that? But then, so I just felt like this was a way to take that life insurance money and found this organization and keep old Anthony Adams, Tony, T.A., as many of you call him, keep his name and keep his legacy going.
Come on, put your hands together for that.
All right, now we gotta get, they know me. They know me. We need to get to Dr. J.
You ready, Candace?
I'm ready.
All right, let's talk.
I stay ready like Dr. J
legendary.
said.
Let me start it off. First of all, it is an honor and an absolute privilege to have you here with us And yeah, go ahead and put your hands together for that. We are absolutely blessed to have someone of your magnitude come and visit us and speak with us, and we don't want to miss this opportunity. I think it's a very appropriate time in history where everyone is feeling uneasy and there's trouble all around us, and standards and things that were normal are no longer normal. The thing that I love about you, and there's a debate all the time, who's the best basketball player? Who's number one? For me, it wasn't that question for you. It was the way that you lived out your career with respect and honor and class. Yeah. And for me, as well as many others, watching the way that you did what you did while excelling in athletics meant a lot to all of us. So with that being said, Mr. Irving, would you talk a little bit about how this standard, this class, this way of doing things with excellence was birthed on the inside of you?
That is one of the things that really saved me from a lot of the evils that are in life. And, evil comes in many, many forms, most of the time on two legs. Two legs, male and female. And that can be a problem. So, and I also, I feel like I've been lucky. I mean, there were things that happened in my physical development. I used to go to this playground. I used to get on the swings. And it was the playground that was right next to my house. Our projects was called Parkside Gardens. It didn't look anything like Parkside Gardens, but it was called Parkside Gardens. And it was because there was a park to the side of the projects.
Parkside.
Yeah. So they had swings and they had basketball court and they had the field out there to play soccer or football or whatever. And they had, the seesaws and monkey bars, and they had hoops, individual hoops. But the swings, I was kind of fascinated by the swings, and I used to, with my best friend, we used to get in the swings, and we'd swing as high as you could, back and forth, and then we'd jump out, say something like Geronimo or whatever. We'd have that feeling of soaring in the air, right? And it was pretty cool. You're 6 years old, right? You're flying in the air. Now, the only problem when you're flying in the air after you jump out of a swing is you got to land, right? So it took a little while to get the landings down, and I always thought about this, and Mickey probably could relate to this. A lot of guys who don't jump very high because they don't know how to land.
It's in the land.
Well, it's in the landing. You need to land on your feet. You don't want to land on your back, your head, your elbow, your shoulder, or whatever, or even, tippy toes, flopping over, all that kind of stuff. So I was a good lander, so I never feared height and going up in the air. And I know that was translatable into my basketball game. I used to like to jump.
That was going to be my question.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm rambling.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
we
Because I
good?
was thinking about you talking about you was flying in the air and
okay.
landing. And then I'm like, okay, so is that what made him a career in basketball?
Oh, okay. Basketball, baseball, football. I never played hockey because we had an ice skating rink in my town, like you probably have one here, but I could never really work those
The
skates.
skates? Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about landing. I landed on my butt every time I put on those skates.
I got some stitches on my ankle.
Do you? Okay, probably everybody in the room got some evidence of ice skates or roller skates not working out too well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it became a process of elimination, and I did play 3 sports right up until my junior year of high school. And in my junior year, I decided to give up baseball and football because I felt as though I was playing, for the camaraderie and the bravado aspect of it. You're in school, and I was a decent student, not an excellent student, but I was a decent student, and I had friends. I was a popular guy, and my friends, we all did the same thing. So we played football, we played baseball, and then after my sophomore year, I was like, wasting my time out there playing those. I need to start working on my basketball game and basically try and get a scholarship because my mother, who had remarried at that time, and my stepfather worked for the sanitation department, and he was 17 years older than my mom. So, he was nearing retirement, even though he hadn't planned to retire. And he didn't really push me in sports, As a matter of fact, he was more into manual labor, and because he worked for the trash department and so on and so forth. So he's like, yeah, you need to come home from school and clean up and get the yard straight and blah, blah, do all this stuff. I got to go to practice. So we had our battles. But he came around. He eventually came around when I did get a scholarship to college. I went to UMass. And when he came up and saw me play, when the whole family came up and saw me play in college, then that was one of those moments where, oh, that's what you're talking about.
Aha moment.
Not just a kid who don't know nothing. You knew something, right? Yeah. So you got to. So with kids, sometimes they know more than you know, and not most of the time. But sometimes they know more than you know, and they know what's in their heart, and they know what. Well, the way I look at it is, if it's something that they have committed themselves to do, it's harder for them to quit. Because quitting is a thing that happens with young people. So I have 4 sons and 3 daughters, and some are sports oriented, some are not. But the idea of quitting, particularly with my sons, I would always say, do you want to join this CYO league or whatever? And they say, yeah. I said, well, okay, if you do, if you join, you can't quit. You have to finish it. Get to the end of the line. Get through with the task. And so each year, same question was presented. It wasn't, I'm telling you to do this, I'm telling you to do that, or belong to this organization or this club or be part of this team. You're telling me that's where you want to be. So I'm going to make sure that you get there, that you get the right equipment, and you get the right support, parental support, support of friends. And I just was not one to let them quit. And then I got to a certain juncture in my life where it was time to quit school. I had a serious dilemma. I cried, and I left school because I had an opportunity to become a pro. But I promised my mother I would go back and I would get my degree. So it took me 2 years. I did finish what I started in that regard, and I think that's a good message for everybody.
I hear a sentiment inside you, and one of the things before this interview happened, I studied you, watched videos, read up on you, and you've had some difficulties, some adversities, and tragedies in your life. I was at a session today with Leslie Johnson, who was a WNBA player, And she also told about some of the tough times that you have being an athlete. And on her worst day, the thing that she had to do was get up. If you would, Mr. Irving, tell us about a time when you could have quit and you did not, but what motivated you to get up the next day and keep going?
For me, it was always an easy solution. You know, my natural father died when I was about 11 years old. And then I lost my youngest brother when I was 16, when he was 16. So I was 19, so I was a freshman in college. So it was 8 years later. And in between those two, my mother's brother passed, and he was my favorite uncle. Right? So these are three male figures in my life, in my lineage, you know, who have now gone somewhere else. So they're in heaven, and I'm a competitive person, so, you know, they say something, they don't kill you, make you stronger, right? So I always felt when I played Mickey, he was playing me and my brother and my father and my uncle. For years, I operated on that. For years, I operated on that belief, and it worked. And it worked, especially in college. Like I went to a tournament in college, and there was a guy there from the Bronx, and it was a Christmas tournament called the Gem City Classic. And, you know, it was a whole lot of hype about this guy. He was from the Bronx. He was a great player, and so on and so forth. And I'm at UMass. I'm a sophomore. We go to this tournament, and supposedly we're going to get killed because they got, you know, the next Connie Hawkins or whatever, this guy. So I took it in stride, and 3 minutes into the game, I realized that it was three against one, right? Spiritually and emotionally, and the physical stuff just started to happen. And at the end of the game, you know, I mean, I had a great game. I was tournament MVP. We beat them. As a matter of fact, he got beat so bad that day, he dropped out of school. And I wasn't that type of guy. You know, I just thought I was doing my job, and I was calling on the resources that were there, and they were just from my natural family members who had gone before me. I got just strength from that, and I still have it today. Still have it today. When I'm tested, I'll call on those who've gone before me, and plenty of them have, because my mother's gone, my stepfather's gone, my sister's gone, my little brother, and one of my sons. So in the takeaway, you know, there's always been this psychological approach to, if I have a loss over here, I need to add something somewhere. You know, Bill Russell and I were great friends, and he passed last year. And he used to put it this way. He said, I have a small circle of people in my life, and if I add somebody, somebody's got to go. So I said, am I in, Bill? Am I in? He said, yeah, you're in. But when you came in, somebody left. He meant it.
So now I have to ask, you know, I share with you the reason you were chosen. I mean, we know why you were chosen, but you are my father's favorite basketball player. And so growing up in that time, which was the 80s, you were doing your thing in the 70s, but I wasn't kind of watching then. But I know we've had many exciting moments watching you move up and down that court, dunking people's face, finger roll. We watched you do it all. Mr. The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh, Mr. Magic Mona. We've had many exciting times watching you.
Yeah.
But you tell us what was one of the most exciting times in your career.
I've had plenty of highlights. Every now and then you might catch yourself in watching YouTube, and it's all right there. The 16 seasons. I'm very happy that the ABA is included in my career, at least on YouTube, because sometimes the NBA doesn't really want to acknowledge 5 years of my career, and Artis Gilmore's and Dan Issel's and Ralph Simpson's, and David Thompson's, and George McGinnis, and just a host of guys who are in the Hall of Fame. But there's just that slight, saying, "Wow, well, that was the ABA." I'm in Indiana. I know Indiana knows the ABA. I know Indiana. So some of my best times was going to Indianapolis, playing.
Beating Reggie Miller.
Huh?
Oh, no.
No, Magic wasn't there then. He was probably in like 6th grade. But the Indiana Pacers had great teams, and they were,
Yes.
3-time champions in the NBA, in the ABA. The Nets, which was my team, was 2-time champion. Squires, none, and the Kentucky Colonels won one, and Utah Jazz won one. So a moment that was special. Is that what you were asking about? Yeah. I think because it was a chase, and I felt as though there were 3 phases to my 16 years. There was the initial 5 years in the ABA, and being on 2 title teams, and being multiple-time MVP, what have you. Then the transition to 76ers, where it became a whole different story. It was almost like starting all over. I was never a rookie in the NBA. When I got to the NBA, I was 26. So I was not a rookie. And I had a big contract. And so that was a distraction. And we had a crazy team, man. You guys know we had me and Big George, Jelly Bean Bryant, and Darryl Dawkins, World Be Free, and Steve Mix, and Doug Collins, and a couple other guys. No, Mo wasn't there. Mo brought stability, believe that. But with that team, so we pretty much barnstormed through the league and have the best record. My first year, best record.
Was that the
Got
67 and
Huh?
what was that record?
I think it was like 57 and
Okay.
57 wins out of 72 games.
Okay.
So we barnstormed, we go through the league, and there was no refinement and development. It was just raw talent. It was odd because suddenly, since the majority of our team was black, we were the bad guys. And I had pretty much escaped being a bad guy most of my life, even though I was on all black teams, different times in my life. But this particular team, it was just like, no, y'all are the bad guys. And even a couple of our reporters, you know, they would get on TV and they would say, this is a disgrace, you know, these guys, these thugs, call us all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, I wasn't used to this. So I sacrificed some of my game to make it all work and for us to win. And we go through the league and we get all the way to finals, and we play the Portland Trail Blazers. So now the Portland Trail Blazers kind of represented the Great White Hope with Bill Walton and, you know, and his crew. So we win the first 2 games, and then we lose the next 4 games. And that was the start of something and also the end of something, you know, because it was the start of the chase for an NBA title. And it was the end of the coach, because he got fired 5 games into the next year. And he said, you know, you guys have the best record, should have won that series. And the coach, I don't know, caught with his hands in the cookie jar, so, you know, he got fired. And we made a lot of trades, and we started rebuilding the 76ers that I became, you know, very attached to and very proud of. We played for the title 3 times in 6 years, and in the 6th year we won. So that was the moment. That was the crowning moment as far as my sports career is concerned, because I felt as though with the titles in the ABA, you know, some people put an asterisk next to them and say it was the ABA. So now I'm the only player with a title in the ABA and the NBA.
Yes.
Thanks. Y'all find this conversation fascinating. Is this good?
Don't get no better.
Yep. Very intriguing to me, Mr. Irving, is how you started off in the ABA and the perception of the ABA. I remember growing up trying to find an ABA game because that's where the juice was. Because it was high flying, people were getting dunked on, they were doing the moves that we were used to on the streets. Yeah. And then you have this dynamic transition into the NBA, which kind of frowned upon that style of playing.
Right.
And then to hear that you came up against this team, Portland, with the ABA style, because it really epitomized what the ABA did, and then the Portland Trail Blazers represent the NBA. But one of the things I realized is shortly after that, the game began to change. Oh, yeah. How much of an influence do you, as an athlete, feel that you had in impacting the way that the game was played in the NBA?
Well, I think my style of play had an impact because we won. You know, people, you know, the Globetrotters were always the flashiest guys. And they had setups in their games. They played the Washington Generals, and they, you know, their record is 2001 versus one win for the Generals. So they won all the time, and it was a show, and it was choreographed, and so it was entertaining, but it wasn't accepted by everyone because it was choreographed, and it really wasn't a competition. So people looked at some of the players from the Globetrotters, and Wilt Chamberlain played for the Globetrotters, Connie Hawkins played for the Globetrotters, and the more famous guys like Meadowlark Lemon and Curly Neal and all those guys, you know, they played for the Globetrotters, and the acceptance of their game in the mainstream game, people said, well, if they came in, they did that, did the fancy stuff, the team wouldn't win. So winning was critical. And in my 16 seasons, I never played on a losing team. You know, we made the playoffs every year, and we played for championships 6 times and won 3. So the winning piece allowed for the influence that I had on the game to be more legitimate. And I wasn't the only guy flying through the air, dunking the ball, and you know, but I might have been one of the few guys who did those things and won. And his team won. The team had a winning record. It found a way to help to make the guys around him better and more confident in themselves. So even at the point of sometimes sacrificing, and you know, and people just think they remember a lot of the flashy stuff and you know, taking off, and flying from the wing or whatever, and so they still would say, well, he can do that, but he can't shoot. That's got like 30,000 points. They won all dunk shots and layups or whatever. And it used to be funny. Sometimes good guys would back off, and you know, the coach would say, "Give him room. We don't want him to drive around you. So give him the shot." Okay, give me the shot. I'll take the shot. Wow. Now, if I miss a couple, then it's like I'm gonna take what I want, which is to go to the hoop. But if you make a couple, well, that's gonna be a 30-point night, you know. So yeah, so I think I have a place in basketball. Wasn't part of a plan, personal plan, part of a master's plan for me, and I acknowledge that. I'm thankful. Thankful for it. And it's always good to see the next star coming up. It's always not, and I'm kind of I was a Kawhi Leonard guy, but I don't think Kawhi wants to play anymore. So now I'm a Mikal Bridges guy.
Mikal Bridges. Yeah. So we have it on record that one of your favorite players is Kawhi Leonard?
Oh yeah, okay. Absolutely.
Okay, and then but your current player is
but the guy I see coming up right now, I see Mikal Bridges.
Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
So I have a question. So now you said you were not the only guy flying through the air. You were not, but you were the smoothest with it. You did it with class. You did.
Candace, that was smooth the way you did that.
I don't know. Marcus Johnson, he never gets his due, but I used to watch Marcus play with Mickey, right? And you know, there was some things that Marcus could do and that I could see him do, and I was like, I wish I could do that. You know, so next time you talk to him, you tell him.
Dr. J, who was your most difficult matchup?
The 2 guys I hated playing against, Bernard King and Adrian Dantley. Because Adrian would kick, bite, scratch, claw, knee. And then it's so funny, he'd make you foul him, and then he'd get on the foul line and he'd start massaging the ball. I'd just be over there so mad. I'd be over there so mad. And Bernard, you couldn't keep up with Bernard. I mean, he's like 6'5", and he run like a deer. And when he played for the Knicks, they ran every play for him. Every play. I mean, I could see you running half the plays. When you run every play for the same guy, he's bound to score and kind of make you look bad. So I'd go to the bench. I said, Bobby, you go get him. Because I have Bobby Jones over there. So, you know, somebody to go get him. But, yeah, those 2 guys probably personally gave me the most difficulty. And, you know, I always tried to balance it out, though. It wasn't like we're going to just lay down and let them run you over.
Oh, no, you didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
So, as you look back over your career and all that you've done, I want you to know I was watching the 1983 championship game.
Okay.
Moses going to take us to the promised land. Okay. I do remember all of that. Yeah. But as you look back over your career, you said you've traveled, you've done this, you've done that. Are there any regrets or anything that you have not done? Or should I?
Well, yeah, there are a few individual awards that, kind of escaped. They really haven't, but let me put it this way. So I was MVP in both leagues, champion in both leagues. I was two-time All-Star Game MVP in the NBA. I was never All-Star Game MVP in the ABA. And it was funny because one game I thought I was the MVP.
And you probably were.
But I wasn't the MVP. So I was like, not that important. And then first year in the NBA, we played in Milwaukee, and I was the MVP of the game, and I played for the East, and the coach took the starters out. I forgot who the coach was, some knucklehead. Took the starters out. The West comes back, then he tries to throw the starters back in, and the West wins the game. And I was the MVP because I had like 30 points and 15 rebounds or whatever. I had the statistics. So the people in Milwaukee started booing me. And then when they gave me the trophy, I said, this is a really significant moment in my life because I played in the ABA my first 5 years. I never won the All-Star Game MVP. So this is the first time winning the All-Star Game MVP. So if y'all don't appreciate it, I can't do anything about that. Mm-hmm. But I am taking the trophy.
Oh, that's right. We're not giving the trophy back. So your thoughts on the NBA today?
NBA? No babies allowed, but there's plenty of them out there.
Wait a minute. Our motto used to be no babies allowed. No babies allowed.
No baby, yeah. I mean, don't get on the court and start crying to the referees and
okay.
To the fans.
You heard. So could you put a name on the baby?
Deion, see, that's so messy.
We have a couple of, guys who cried all the time. Rick Barry used to cry all the time. But he was excusable. So, but now it's just like dozens of guys. They get hit.
Too many.
It's like, come on, man. And the chest bumping and what is that all about? I mean, come on now. Be human. You're not an animal. It gets me. I don't know, get you guys? Some of the antics. And the funny part is, you see the 6-year-olds doing it now. They hit a shot, they start celebrating like, they just won $1 million. Maybe they did. Yeah, so I grew up with the generation, coach said, we don't win this game, y'all get on that bus going home, I don't want to hear a sound. So those celebrating during the game, only way you could celebrate, you win that game. That was it. So
I think that's one of the difficulties that my generation has with this generation of basketball players, because we grew up with toughness. You won the second game in the playoffs. You didn't celebrate. You walked off the court and waited for the next game until the job was done. And this generation has tremendous athletes. I mean, phenomenal athletes, but the way that they do it irritates me. What are your thoughts?
I'm irritated as well. You know, just you can't celebrate every play. I mean, because you're doing what you set out to do, and you're doing what you're supposed to do. You know, take the champ over here. He gets a hit at it, right? He stand over there and start celebrating and all that kind of stuff. He gonna get knocked out. That's just that process. You got process gets you to an ending, and sports. I mean, I'd love to see sports return to that, but it's too far gone now. I don't think it'll ever return to that. Sure.
So we have several youth here. And for me, it was very important to have youth in the building, because I think they get it, but I don't think they really get it, who Dr. J really is and how important he is to the game of NBA. And so the youth that's here, and shout out to you organizations who brought youth out, you know, but for the youth that is in the building, what message would you give them?
Well, I'd like to start back to maybe middle school for me, since these guys are probably middle school or high school, right? You say you. And, you know, I used to play a lot of one-on-one basketball with a guy who was pretty much my best friend during that time. And he was he was a argumentative type of guy. So ball would go off his leg, out of bounds. He said, "Well, you push me, so it should be my ball, and not your ball." And so now we standing there arguing, right? And I said, "You know, you're just like a professor. You just always want to lecture to me, and you're not the boss of me."
Right.
So I call him the professor. He said, "Well, if I'm the professor, then you're gonna be the doctor." That's how I got my nickname. I got it from the guy who I call the professor. And we're still great friends today. You know, both old guys. And I would just like to say to the young people in here, a lot of the people who you're interacting with now, your brothers and sisters, your siblings, and obviously cousins, your neighbors, your friends, even people who you compete against or whatever. This is a lifetime journey. And, you know, unless they're extenuating circumstances, you probably are going to see the same people with the same faces that you're seeing now, you know, as a 15-year-old, you know, for many, many years. And I think that it's important that when you look at them and you spend time with them, that, you know, you're candid, you know, you're just honest about what you think and how you feel, and, you know, find a way to go below the surface, you know. And there's probably going to be, when you go below the surface, now we're back to Bill Russell. You know, the circle gets smaller. The circle gets smaller, but it gets more intense. And it's actually a really good feeling when you got somebody who's like your homeboy, your homegirl, or, you know, your main, your ace boom cool, or whatever, you know, whatever these names used to be and what they are now. When you get to do that and you feel that or whatever, you find something special. You find something that everybody doesn't have. And you know, I have people from who've been lifetime friends, and particularly you know, from middle school and from high school. And I went to a high school. It's predominantly black high school in Roosevelt, Long Island. And coincidentally, 5 years after me, Howard Stern graduated from my high school. 10 years after me, Eddie Murphy graduated from my high school. So we have a few notable people who went to that particular school and had that experience. And I was back there 3 weeks ago for the dedication of a court, compliments of Nancy Lieberman. It was a dream court that they put not in the high school but in the park in my community. And you know, it was a warm feeling. It was the people who I went to school with, you know, who still live there, and you know, they came out, and you know, just the hug and the greeting and the sincerity of it, or whatever. There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. So for all the losses, you know, that I've had with the immediate family, you know, there have been those people who have kind of replaced those relatives that have been lost as friends, and they become brothers and sisters.
I just want to say this to you, Mr. Irving. Thank you for representing yourself to us. I don't know if you will ever realize the impact of being able to see a black man on television, successful, making money, handling adversity, never backing away from things, and do it in a dignified and classic way.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Things like that, they shape us and open us up to the possibilities. And I'm just grateful that everyone in here, and the reason they're here, not only from the Anthony Adams House, but they wanted to be able to touch you because you have touched our lives in a significant way.
You know, I think with, you know, the technology that's out there now, and especially social media, and people talk about influencers, and, you know, some people 12 years old say, well, I want to be an influencer. They don't even know what they're talking about or whatever. but then suddenly they got 1 million likes. And I don't know how the whole thing works, but it's part of how we live now. And, you know, if you are able to see, I grew up, I wasn't like Charles Barkley. I was like, I'm okay with being a role model. He says he don't want to be a role model, although he is a role model and he's an influencer, a tremendous influencer, and he and I are friends. So I'm not talking about him in a bad way. And I think it is a part of your responsibility, I think, if you've had good things happen to you in life, to pass the torch, you know, open the door.
Yes.
Open the door, let some other people in, and say what you gotta say, you know, and say, and if you're gonna err on the side, you know, of trying to do the right thing, because we all make mistakes. I mean, I've made plenty of mistakes in my life, but if I err on the side of trying to do the right thing, then I can accept that. I can accept that and move on and walk away with my head up high and take on the next challenge, because there's always going to be another challenge, even at 73. So all you young people, don't think it's time to relax right now. We can get up here at my age, you know, there's something tomorrow that you got to do. 63 was the last. The last dunk was at 63.
So I agree with everything Dion said. You know, when that vehicle pulled up, you know, I try to be, you know, cool and all that. That vehicle pulled up. Yeah, and the staff, they was just cracking up laughing at me, because it's like, Dr. J. And I promise you, I hugged that man like he was my daddy. I did. I got under him, and old Barry was sitting there. I was just like, okay, whatever with you. Dr. J.
That was the best greeting we ever got, believe me.
See, because it's that love. It's like that's Dr.
You got number
J.
one. You occupying
Yeah,
number
but I
one.
just gave him that Dr. J hug. But no, this has been great, and I hope the youth, like I said, understand greatness. This is greatness. You like the ones that's out there now, but this is one that laid the footprints. Yes.
Thank you for turning in to the Hush No More podcast, the one and only platform where professional athletes, current and former, can come on a non-judgmental broadcast to discuss their trials, triumphs, faith, and transition difficulties from sports. This show is hosted by former WNBA player, depression and alcohol abuse survivor Leslie Johnson, who founded Hush No More LLC after surviving her own self-struggles after sports. Leslie believes that we can take a huge step forward towards mental wellness simply by sharing the life stories, experiences, and testimonies of professional athletes to others that secretly hurt. By subscribing to this podcast, you'll quickly discover that we can learn so much and heal by listening to one another.